Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please stand for the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, on behalf of the board, I'd like to welcome all members of the audience to this evening's meeting. This meeting is a working session of the board to conduct the business of the district. The agenda for today's meeting has been published, and the agenda items to be discussed and/or voted on have been studied by board members. I'll introduce the people here on the dais with me. To my far left, Recording Secretary Cindy Benson, Superintendent Larry Francois, board members Amy Cast, Sandy Hayes, Don McCravey, and Kimberly D'Angelo.
I left everything in the back room. I'm going to get it.
Okay. We'll wait for you, Don.
Sorry.
I'm Janet Quinn, and I currently serve as president of the board. Don knows this next section. I'll just go to the next one. Agendas for this meeting, as well as minutes from our previous meeting, are available on the table at the back. If you are here to address the board on agenda items, please sign in on the clipboard that's available on that table. And you'll have an opportunity near the beginning of the meeting to address us with your comments. Now we will pause for a moment and wait for Dawn to return. All right, our first order of business this evening is a special presentation. We are delighted to welcome Russ Thornburg and his family and friends for his graduation ceremony, and I'm going to introduce Donna Tayo to lead the celebration.
I am Donna Tyler. I'm the principal of the alternative programs for the North Shore School District, and I'm going to give you some background on Russ in just a minute. But Russ came into my life as a very interesting first kid that I got to interview to enter into any of my 3 programs. And so I decided when I became principal that I wanted to meet every one of the kids that came into an alternative school that we had at North Shore. And this young man walks in with mom, they sit down, and we start talking about, well, why are you here? And he goes, well, I want to play music for a career, and a traditional school I don't think is going to work for that. And I said, oh, and so I'm thinking 11th grader, 12th grader, he was going into the 10th grade. And I thought, well, here's a guy that knows exactly what he wants to do already at a young age. So we talked about what schools we had to offer, and he decided that the online school, Graduation Alliance, was going to fit his profile because he was going to go tour. Sign contracts, do that whole thing that everybody loves to dream about, right? He had that opportunity. So not knowing what I was doing, he didn't know what he was doing, off we go on to Grad Alliance, and he knew that he was going to be touring in the spring-ish of the following year, so he wanted to get as many credits done as he could. So I watch online as the kids go through. He finishes almost his entire sophomore year by about February. Very motivated, very, what I, again, realized skilled. So he finishes his sophomore year on Grad Alliance and decides, you know what, high school might not be so bad, and maybe I want to get that high school experience that all kids get. Great decision on his part. But again, he was already ahead of the game because he had finished back in January, February, and started his junior credits before he even finished his sophomore year. Gets up to Engelhorn, goes through his junior year ahead of the game, finishes with just a few credits left at the end of his junior year for his senior year. So now he has a decision to make. Do I do half of the year at Inglemoor and graduate early, or do I pursue my music? That's what he decided. Pursue the music. And went back into Grad Alliance, so I was really excited to see Russ is enrolling back in Grad Alliance. And of course, he graduated early because he didn't have very many credits to go. So he wrote me this really nice, detailed description of what he did, and I'm going, yeah, I know that, yeah, because again, first of all the kids that I put in Grad Alliance, he kind of had a little bit of a special place in my heart. So I said, you're graduating, any chance you want to go in front of the school board? They love when our kids graduate from Grad Alliance so they can see you, even though we've got our backs to them. Because that's such, online school is such a challenge to begin with, and then to have a kid do it, and do it ahead of time, is just, you know, a great honor, and we're really happy that we get to honor him for this. So, we were just talking out in the hallway, what are you going to do next year? I'm, you know, still interested in music, going to his brother and he play in a band together. He just came back from Bellingham playing a concert. So again, the music is his life, and that's what he likes to pursue, and that we are very, very thankful that we had a program that fit his career goals as well as his personal goals. So I told him this is how this works at the big schools. Russ Thornburg, you are now have met all the graduation requirements of the North Shore School District. You are now graduated. You can take your tassel from your right to your left. And yay!
Oh, I love that. One more picture.
And we're going to have board members to go down and
What is your music?
You can't throw your head. What did you play?
What is your music?
What do you play or do?
Mainly guitar. I play a little piano and a little drums when it calls for it. You know.
Are you gonna dance?
Yes. Oh, just rock and roll, I guess, alternative. You know, not really a thing we can. Yeah. I'm sorry. It sounds horrible.
You can come closer. And
Only
Donna?
when I have to.
That looks great. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Oops. There we go. Wait, one more. 1, 2. Thank you.
And as I mentioned to him in the hallway, our graduation gift to you is permission to leave the meeting anytime you want to. You're also welcome to stay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Very exciting. All right. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. I want to begin tonight by congratulating over 1,500 students, plus one more, who received North Shore diplomas over the past 2 weeks. I thoroughly enjoyed the opportunity to attend all 7 of our district graduations, I guess now all 8 of our district graduations. So ATP Networks, North Shore Networks, Secondary Academy for Success, Woodville High School, Bothell High School, Inglemoor High School, ATP Pathways, and I know many board members were at some or all of those as well. Each graduation was exceptional in its own way. The students were extremely well behaved this year wherever we were at. The student and staff speakers were inspiring, and I thought board members each did a great job at the graduations at which you spoke, so thank you for sharing your words. And all in all, it was a wonderfully positive way to conclude the school year. I want to acknowledge and welcome some new administrators to our district. So Elizabeth Cano will be joining us from the Edmonds School District as new assistant principal at Bothell High School. Amber Pekar, how we pronounce that? Pekar will be coming to us from the Everett School District as assistant principal at Timbercrest Junior High. Kate Bradshaw will be one of our elementary assistant principals, and she's coming from the Seattle School District. Stephanie Penrod, Karen Ziem, and Kristen Cortez are all current North Shore folks in different capacities. Stephanie, a current NSD TOSA, interning at Crystal Springs, Karen, a teacher and intern at Wellington, and Kristen, currently an interim assistant principal at Wooden, and they will all be joining our assistant principal ranks at the elementary next year. We're still sorting out some of those assignments and maybe subject to how actual enrollment comes in at some of the schools in the fall as far as how much assistant principal they'll qualify for. So welcome to all of them. We are currently fully staffed in our building administrators, hoping to stay that way. So. We had a very successful bond sale earlier today. This was the second and final issue of the 2014 bond issue. Average payoff duration of the bond sold today will be just under 13 years with a total interest cost of just under 3.4%, which was lower than our pre-sale projections. So that was some positive news there, and I just want to acknowledge and thank Lydia for an outstanding job facilitating her first, but I think our largest bond sale ever in the school district. So she did great work with all of that. On last week on June 16th, Carolyn O'Keefe, Ryan Fujiwara, and I attended afternoon tea at the invitation of the Islamic Center of Bothell, our neighbors next door. It was a great opportunity to speak with the leadership there about a couple of things. One, about lots of logistical issues, primarily parking and peak times at the Islamic Center as well as at the district office, and when we share and utilize one another's parking. And the other thing we talked quite a bit about was better ways we could support our Muslim students in our schools. We conveyed our plans to them for our upcoming focus groups, and that we'll want to tap into the Islamic Center to learn more about the experience of some of their families in our schools. And they then shared with us a primer on the Muslim holy month of Ramadan that began on June 18th. And while minimal impact to students this year, Ramadan moves about 11 days earlier each school year. So now with each successive year, it will start encroaching more and more onto the end of the school year. And so we'll have more overlap, and we'll need to be smarter about how we accommodate and address the needs of students who will be participating in fasting during the school year. On June 17th, the second to last day of school, I read to Jane Tom's second grade class at Fernwood, something I've done each year for the past several years. Jane's son, Peter, was a student of mine in the Snohomish School District many years ago, so we have kind of a special bond around that. I also attended a bit of the Fernwood end-of-year assembly, one of two assemblies that they have to hold for the end of year because they can't accommodate all of their students in a single assembly. It was clear by the energy level, both in Ms. Tom's class as well as in the assembly, that kids were very excited about the end of the school year. Although more than half of the second graders said that they wish the school year was not coming to an end and that school would be continuing. So I think that was good. June 18th, I attended the Woodinville Chamber of Commerce Luncheon, which was a preview of the Celebrate Woodinville, the series of summer events and concerts, and the August 15th Community Parade and Celebration. Hopefully you'll have a chance to participate in some of those activities. And I will be concluding my term as chair of the Woodinville Chamber at the end of August, but will be continuing on as past chair and board member for another 3-year term. Later in the day on the 18th, after school was out, we enjoyed a wonderful Admin Center ice cream social organized by the Communications Department, funded by cabinet members, and put on by our Food Services Department. It was a great way to wrap up and celebrate the end of the school year with a Hawaiian beach theme. Folks had the opportunity to visit with one another, interact with folks they may not see on a regular basis, share their summer plans. I want to thank Leanna and Karen and Cecilia from the Communications Department, and Linda Howell, Michael, and Brenda from Food Services for putting this together. And just as a reminder to the board, I'll be traveling to Spokane on Friday for a WASA board meeting on Saturday, and the WASA AWSP Summer Conference from Sunday through Tuesday. And then I plan to take a couple of days off in conjunction with the 4th of July. We'll be back in the office on July 7th. So hope you all have a wonderful 4th of July holiday.
Thank you, Larry. Next on the agenda is association and public comments. The North Shore School District Board of Directors has set aside a period of up to 60 minutes to receive updates and comments from association leaders and citizens from our community. The board expects speakers to address matters related to district operations, policies, procedures, and agenda items under consideration by the board. Comments should not make reference to any employee or representative from the district by name. If interested, there is a complaint process available through the Office of the Superintendent. Please note that because of the public governance process, the board may ask clarifying questions regarding topics not on the meeting's agenda, but will likely defer discussion to a future meeting if warranted in order for staff to prepare any necessary background information for board members to review and for the item to be included on a published agenda for the benefit of any other parties that might be interested. Alternatively, a district employee or board member may respond to individuals offering public comment at a later date if warranted. When addressing the board, please state your name clearly for our records. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. There is a timer that will sound when your time has expired. We thank you for your participation in the governance process, and we'll start with association leaders. Jerry?
Hello, I'm Sherry Rudolph, President of North Shore Council PTSA. Welcome. I was on my way here. I was reflecting that I came like in 2011 just to come to a PTA meeting because my daughter's dance studio was close by, and I was like, oh, I'll just hang out for a few minutes, and I'm like, where I am. So, and the journey has been quite fun. So, very excited about our partnerships this year. Just has been a joy working with Leanna and Karen, and Kathleen and Carolyn on the Smarter Balance info nights, and bringing Katie Greer in just as looking over the year. There's been some high points. So we look forward to future partnerships and working together, and we're going to have our July 1st board meeting where we're going to plan for all the things we're going to do next year. And our only change is Berta Phillips, and Kara is going to just continue with only Woodinville, just one position. So yeah, we have lots of opportunities for family engagement on the horizon. So tomorrow I leave in the morning for Charlotte for National PTA Convention. No, I'm not packed yet, so maybe out of here too. So I'm excited. I had the joy of reading through the bylaws, and so I did see that they are, as I mentioned last time, that the language is sometimes a little bit primitive with PTA, and they actually are changing. They're evolving a lot of their language. They're bringing the Articles of Incorporation, which have not been changed since 1965, they're changing that language, and they want to do everything all at once, the bylaws and board policy. So they're calling it the PTA of tomorrow. So I'm very encouraged to see what all happens, and let me know anything you would like me to find out from other states. There's a pretty kind of a small group of us from Washington, so I will be communicating quite a bit with some other council leaders, some other state leaders. So and try to find out as much as I can. Also, this Friday is Care Day, and Eileen, I made this, the one with the Spanish on one side and English on the other, so, she has a bunch in office, so, make those, but look forward to seeing everyone there, and have a great summer. Thank you.
We wish you a
Sherry, I had a question.
good trip.
Yes.
It's me.
Hi.
Sorry. So I was curious to know if other states are changing their bylaws to be inclusive of national bylaws only, and just not restating that, because I think that changed a bit this year for Washington State. They said, well, since it's already a national, we're just going to take it out. And so I was wondering how many other states are doing that.
Okay.
So, while you're not busy.
I'm sure. I know, I might as well. Thank you.
Carmen?
So, get called up by the school board president. My name's Carmen Delzell. I'm representing the North Shore Schools Foundation, and I came here today to thank you, the school board, for a great year. I want to acknowledge your hard work as a member of the school board, your volunteer service, the countless hours that you put in studying the issues, trying to learn things that I'm sure you never even knew existed, because I sure didn't before I had this job. I wanted to acknowledge your leadership and the value that your families have put into this, and your sleepless nights of learning and leading this district. So thank you very much. Recently, I was at a Snohomish County Schools Foundation kind of meeting. We've got this great idea that we can really help kids if we band together, particularly Snohomish County is a little less organized than King County, given that King County is ginormous. And those school districts are smaller. And so they have really asked us to come in and help because we can impact more kids together. And so we're working together on some unified grants and some unified kind of movements and programs, so we'll see what comes out of it. But one of the things that really does come out of it is the value of the school board goals that I have to work with and what that's like for me to be able to line up with what's important to you and how that allows a foundation like ours to be able to support where you're going. So I just really wanted to acknowledge that. It's not something you can take for granted. It's something we take for granted because we have them, and I'm looking forward to where we do with vision and mission and goals. But the fact that I know which direction we're going really helps us move the community and use our resources. I also wanted to acknowledge our administration for leading several intense initiatives that make a huge impact on kids. This is a very, very amazing time to be part of a big district that has a great reputation, that is building a gorgeous new high school, redistricting, dealing with the ways to best serve our early start time, looking meaningfully at valuing diversity in our schools on a daily basis, addressing district-wide behavior systems, and all of those things are more than any Microsoft would ever take on in a year. And it's a big deal. So it's an exciting time. I know that it's a lot of stress, but I guess we just, as a foundation, want to say we're here to support. And I know that our donations are, 0.00. I'm not going to tell you how many zeros, but nonetheless, we are trying to help. And we are grateful to be a part of the PBIS system. We have funded it in the past, and as soon as we get our end year numbers, we'll tell you for sure how much we can support in the future. We've been privileged to be part of the National Board Teacher Certification process. Again, because you had school board goals, we knew what was important to you and we can support them. Funding everything from the 3D printer that makes Susan Delpenny so happy, and we love being part of DECA and FBLA that just keeps nailing this nationwide program. So we really appreciate the partnership. And of course, your full year-end report doesn't come until October until I can put it all together. But it's the end of the year, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of a thank you and a little preview. So like PTSA, we also have had re-elections. So our slate looks slightly different, but similar. So Michelle Morris is here, and Becky Burge will be co-presidents. And so Michelle's got children at Leota and Woodinville. And Becky had children go through the Bothell feeder pattern, my feeder pattern, Dawn's area, Maywood, Candy Park, Bothell. And Anna Adams will be our vice president, so she's in the Bear Creek, Timber Crest, Woodinville pattern. Sasha Dawes is going to be our treasurer. He's at Fernwood, so he'll go Fernwood, North Creek, somewhere in between there. I don't know exactly where, sorry. And who else do we have? We've got Terry Foose, who's got children in the Woodinville feeder pattern, who will be our member at large, and Sherry Kranick, who is, PTSA extraordinaire, and also through the Inglemoor feeder pattern as our secretary. And then with the help of CPAC and our partnership with them, which has been just a really, really valuable partnership, the foundation and CPAC were able to fund over $3,500 worth of innovative classroom grants, which Larry mentioned, Superintendent Francois mentioned.
35,000.
35,000. Did I say 3,500? Did I? My very first luncheon, I said we had 100,000 staff people, so my zeros are, I'm just always adding one in the wrong place. Anyway, so that 35,000 will impact over 13,000 students next year alone. So that's if everything that we did just fell away. So I am thrilled that we're learning our impact, and I think you're going to see a really exciting story about what a student's journey is through this district and with the help of the foundation, and how we're supporting them being ready. And also, my preliminary numbers have us at increasing approximately 200 donors this year, and in an organization with about 1,000 people, that's a huge increase. So our community really is coming out to say, what can we do? And we're happy with that. So I'm going to invite you to the Celebrate Woodinville festivals, because on July 15th, we're just gonna throw a tent up in the corner and call it the Foundation Corner, and why would we do that? So we'd love you to all come, bring your families. We'd like the opportunity to have kids play together, and
What's the date?
July 15th. July 15th at the Woodinville, Celebrate Woodinville, you'll see I think we might have a kokanee tent. So look for a kokanee tent, but that will be exciting. And if you wanted, there happens to be a new category in Best of North Shore this year from the Woodinville, or the Kenmore Bothell Reporter, called Best Nonprofit. I'm not saying that I've been begging them to add it year after year after year after year, but that might be part of the result. So if you wanted to help us push that, would be great. We're really excited. I think it's an exciting way for our community to even learn that we exist, right? You know, what other organization can you give $60 and impact kids on 18 times during their career? It's a pretty big, great investment. So thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for partnering with us. Have a great summer.
Carmen. You're very fortunate to have both the North Shore Schools Foundation and the PTSA as such great partners, so thank you both. I don't see any other associations. If I'm wrong, stand up. No, don't think so. So we'll move to public comment, and we'll start with Arlene Thomas.
Hi, good evening. My name is Arlene Thomas, and I and my husband are the parents of two girls who are right there. One 8-year-old who just finished up second grade at Crystal Springs, and and a kindergartner who did her first year at Frank Love, since Crystal Springs didn't do kindergarten this year. But she's been very excited to go to Crystal Springs in the years coming up. We recently purchased a new home in February. We had moved, or previously we had lived right across the street from Crystal Springs, and we're very involved in the community there. When we purchased our new home, we were very intentional about staying within the Crystal Springs feeder pattern. And when we purchased our home in February, it was still under the boundary lines of Crystal Springs. So with the next boundary change, we are now slated to go to Frank Love Elementary School instead of Crystal Springs. So, and the boundary is right basically in our backyard. So what happens, we're in a development called Summit View, and so all of us are slated to change to the Frank Love pattern. What this means is that kids within our neighborhood, not necessarily our development, but neighboring communities, our kids will be going to different schools than them in the following years, which really is a bummer since we have been very intentional about kind of creating community in this area. What this also means for especially our kindergartner is that she will have gone to Frank Love for a year, Crystal Springs for 2 years, back to Frank Love. And I know of at least 7 other families within our community who are parents of kindergartners who will have the same impact. So while we have been in Crystal Springs, my husband and I have been very intentional about volunteering in classrooms, and field trips, and just again kind of creating that community feeling with other parents and teachers and staff members there. And I know that within our development, there are a number of other families who are feeling similar to us, who have been really intentional about kind of creating that community and are concerned about this change for us. One of the concerns we have is proximity. So Crystal Springs is about 1.5 miles from our house. With the move to Frank Love, that distance doubles, which again kind of cuts down on that community feeling. And we're concerned about our availability to be as involved as we have been in the past. So what we're asking is for you guys to reverse the last draft revision so that our community stays within, and of Summit View stays within the Crystal Springs feeder pattern.
A clarifying question. Did you, was this change, the change you're talking about, was this after the final draft boundary, and prior was this community within the boundary draft that we
So
had?
the first draft revision, we were within the Crystal Springs Canyon Park Middle School and North Creek High School, and with this change, we're in Frank Love, Kenmore Middle School, and Bothell High School.
And you said this is a new neighborhood of about 17 homes?
It's
Is that what I
about
heard?
30 homes, I believe. Yeah.
But it's new.
Yes, it's a newer development. So it's primarily kind of younger families who are kind of all starting this transition.
And you said it was just a pop.
Yes, yeah. So there is like, we were within that first draft revision. Like it was our neighborhood and neighboring that were kind of taken out of that. So it is a small pocket of that neighborhood that has been moved.
So Arlene, just wanted to see if you were made aware that there is on the website a place for you and your neighbors to enter
Yes.
this information. I just want to make sure you know about
Yeah,
that. That's how the task force gets that great detail.
Yes, so we definitely have, both my husband and I have inputted for those comments, and we've asked neighbors to do that as well.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Arlene. Rana Mahmood?
Hi, my name is Rana Mahmood, and my family lives in Bothell, and my children currently attend Crystal Springs Elementary. Our neighborhood is a development called Summit View that sits right on the border of the current proposed boundary lines. In the previous boundary proposal, our neighborhood was within the boundary feeder pattern of Crystal Springs Elementary, Canyon Park Middle School, and North Creek High School. Unfortunately, the latest proposal changed that. When the new boundary changes go into effect, my children will be pulled out of Crystal Springs and sent to Franklin Elementary, and then continue on to Kenmore Middle School. I'm here today to ask to keep our neighborhood within the Crystal Springs boundary lines. And I'm also here today to present a petition representing the members of our neighborhood who are requesting the same thing. We have signatures from 37 households who will be impacted by this change. I would like to point out a few of the concerns of my household as well as concerns of others represented in this petition. Looking at the map, our neighborhood is one of the farthest from Frankville Elementary, as well as Kenmore Middle School. We are concerned with the social impact this distance will have on the students who live far away. The proximity also poses a problem to the parents who are actively involved in their children's classrooms and the school community. The distance from our homes to the schools will have a negative impact on the frequency of parent volunteering. We are a newer development made up mostly of families with young children who purchased their homes in Summit View specifically so that they would attend Crystal Springs Elementary. We love our neighborhood, and we feel a sense of community will be lost due to neighboring areas attending different schools. The proposed May 2015 adjustments will also impact the Summit View households that do not have children. Some of the signees are concerned about the resale value of their house once their address is no longer within the boundary lines for the current neighborhood elementary school. Thank you. And can I ask
Thank
who
you,
I can
Rana.
present this
Yes,
to?
please give that to Cindy. And great, thank you. She'll give it to us. Ken Smith.
Good evening, even though it's not dark yet. I wanted to say thank you for the board for routinely posting the materials before the meetings. That's very helpful to those of us interested in transparency, and I'm here speaking on behalf of the North Shore Citizens for Transparency as their spokesperson. We usually try to read the materials and get our comments in as early as possible. The agenda got up this time a little bit later on Thursday night was when we saw it, so I apologize. But our comments came in Monday morning. There are 3 items that are on the consent agenda that we think probably deserve a little bit more transparency and discussion in the full dialogue. And then there's 2 items on the other part of the meeting I'd like to talk about. On the consent agenda, the first one is the salary schedules, items 18 to 22. The contracts all had been redlined with all the changes, which was very, very useful and easy to see, except for the salary schedules at the back. Those had not been redlined showing the changes. And so those changes we have done, and I just was reviewing my notes. Unfortunately, I didn't do Schedule 11, which is in one of the contracts. And I apologize, that was just a printing mistake on my part. So, but these are the schedules, and from a consistency and precedent perspective, We would request that you upload new documents so that next year when they do this, they realize that the consistent way to do a red line document is all the way through, including the salary schedule. The second item is the capital facilities plan. This document's extremely important given the growth in the district. How do we understand our growth? Where is our growth needs? What is our capacity? We had been oftentimes using the 2014 plan, which is included here. It says page 16 at the bottom and at the top. And included a column called design capacity and schedule capacity. And we had done a calculation that there was about 70% capacity utilization using this design number. Sounds like there's a fair amount of space. On the schedule capacity, it's 85%. In the 2015 plan that is still in the draft stage, the design capacity is no longer listed. And so we could not find or get clarity about what really the difference is between the design and the schedule, and whether or not that's related to the impact fees that the district does not collect. And is that the criteria that the county or the state or whoever uses? So we think that that deserves further discussion. There was also, and then there was a whole series of questions that I emailed you on the capital facilities plan. I apologize, I don't have written comments today. There were so many things. And then the summary of changes for 2015 does not include that the design capacity has been omitted. That seemed to be a fairly substantial change. So to the extent that that's a new policy or precedent that you're setting, it probably should be in that. And then lastly, sorry for the time, this memo from June 4th I received it via public records request. I don't believe that it has been discussed by the board in public, nor by that has been seen by the public on the website. And on the back of it, I was talking with Karen Musiker about these words assigned, encumbered, and committed. Those have very specific meanings in generally accepted accounting principles, and I think you should get clarity on that. I think you guys have seen that, but the public hasn't. Sorry for running over.
All right, thank you, Ken.
Ken, can I ask you a quick question?
Absolutely.
Just on the schedule, so if I just did math on one cell here where you were talking, you've redlined all of these and increased them by 2.89%?
No, what we did is we went and one of the other members in our group went and looked at the schedule that was posted online at the HR page from the schedule from the prior contract, and then put that in black, because that would have been the old number, and then in red is written the new number, which was consistent with what was being done for all of the other parts of the document. So we did not change any of the numbers. We just used the number, the old salary schedule number, and then the new salary schedule number. So what's in the proposal for the board is only the red numbers, not the old numbers.
Yeah, there's an explanation for that.
Right.
Make sure somebody.
Yeah, we'd love to hear it. Thank you.
All right, Brian Jones.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Brian Jones. I am a board member of the Canterwood Homeowner Association, and we've gotten notification that our neighborhood on top of Hollywood Hill is being carved out to go to Cottage Lake. I can just tell you, being a board member, you riled a very small group and a bunch of moms very quickly that the firestorm was like moms with hockey sticks, let me tell you. So needless to say, of the 3 moms you riled are people who in the last 6 months who were very deliberate and intentional who bought in our neighborhood. Or as you would say, just like some of the other parents who spoke earlier, people are very intentional about where they move, where they buy, because of the school's reputation, what the schools offer, such as STEM at Hollywood Hill is not offered at Cottage Lake. Even myself, I moved into that neighborhood after teaching for a year at Hollywood Hill Elementary as a long-term sub. I bought there intentionally because of my own child. So I'm kind of curious with the board, I don't know if I get to ask questions, the business intelligence of what's the head count that you know from those 40 homes that are feeding that? I know it's a loaded gun because I'm a trained lawyer, so I already know my own answer, but how many kids feed your school? But can you guys tell me how many kids do you know were reported from that neighborhood who feed the school.
So Brian, unfortunately, this is not a question and answer time.
Okay.
It's a time for you to provide comment.
All right.
But you are, again, like Amy said, this is great information for you
Okay.
to give to the
Give it to the
boundary
board?
team. Yeah,
Well, I'll
Just
help
to
you.
the
not just to the board, but to the task force.
Task
to the-
force
and
that's working on it.
The enrollment
Yeah, that's
demographic
fine.
task
So the
force.
moms got a petition, and scarily, I'll just give the board a heads up, they already hired a lawyer. So I tried to talk them out of it. Currently, you have 10 kids feeding from our school into the school district with 4 underage, ranging from 6th grade to kindergarten, so there's 10. But it's interesting, across the street, literally from us, a neighborhood we kind of adopted that has only 10 homes, has 12 kids feeding into the school, all from 3rd grade through kindergartens, but they were still allowed to go to Hollywood Hill. So it's interesting that they targeted a particular pocket, but the street that has only 10 homes versus 40 has 2 more kids currently feeding the school. And it's interesting even more, of the 10 that are now going to Hollywood Hill Elementary, 5 of those kids did not go until there was change in some leadership at Hollywood Hill Elementary. They went to private schools. They targeted the school and the school areas very specifically for what they had, the community, and what they offered. And I can just share with you, it is a total different audience, and they're, like the others, worried about what will be the resale, but they targeted this community for a reason for why they moved to Hollywood Hill. And I can say, the change, my son will be graduating, going to junior high, but I still think, what will it do to me in 10 years when my son is done? When I go to market, I can't say they go to Hollywood Hill, they'll be going to Cottage Lake. Not that it's not a great school, but what they offer are not equitable. So thank you.
So I just wanted to clarify, did you fill out the
input
enrollment
form?
demographic task force? We have
The comment
online,
form.
we have a form where this information is really, really helpful to our committee that's working on it.
Okay.
And then if you didn't fill that out, if you could fill it out, that's really helpful for our task force to be able to see that. So did you fill that out?
I personally did not, but I
Okay.
will empower that
It would
audience and
be
see if I
great, yeah.
can call them off,
Yeah.
because I know they're ruffled. So I'll see if I can influence them. I don't know if they're aware of that, but their hair's on fire at the moment, so I
So
told
we
them I would
appreciate
come
you coming,
speak.
but that's another avenue to be able to give the information directly to.
Yeah, it's a direct line to the task force.
The task force,
Okay,
specifically that's working on this.
I will make sure I communicate that when I get home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Right, that does conclude the citizen comments for this evening. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
I'd like to pull something off the consent agenda. I actually had some questions about all of the contracts. I'm not sure if from my questions I'll need to pull them all off. And look, here comes John. But I do definitely want to pull number 22 off and put it on as an action item.
Done. Should we move and then you can pull? I think procedurally.
Is that? I don't know no, that's not procedurally necessary. No.
So let me understand though, you want 22 pulled off for sure.
Yes.
So we'll put that on, Cindy will get that at the end of the action items. If you feel that your questions might be answered and you don't need to pull the other ones off, then I'm going to ask for a motion
Then I
to
can
approve
make a motion.
and minus 22 and then we'll go to the discussion and we'll get your questions answered. Does that sound all right? Okay. So, okay, Sandy moved to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
And Amy. Okay. Thank you. Dawn, now proceed, please.
I also had questions about the capital facilities plan, but we'll start with contracts, okay? I have a whole mess of little tabs. On the NRAP, NNRIP contract, on page, well, it's on the salary schedule page that Mr. Smith did another one of it. And I did stop by Jeff before, as we were coming in, and asked him why I didn't have the previous years and the current year's salary schedule. And so I was really pleased to get this wherever he went. So that does give it to me, thanks. But on the page of the,
Is this
yeah.
actually what Ken gave us? Is that the
It's
actual previous year and?
I don't think Jeff has
Yeah.
seen.
So
I don't think it was Ken accurate. I mean, is this what you would agree is that?
Well, he was saying he took it directly off of the list, so.
So for the term of the previous agreement, the agreement that will expire on June 30th, there's a mechanism in there in the NASA and NRAP agreements for a market adjustment that occurs within the term of that agreement on June 30th of each year. That adjustment was made in 13-14 on June 30th for the previous year. So it's a look back based on a market analysis that's done in the January-February timeline of that year. Another market adjustment was made based on the same methodology of looking at peer districts and adjusting the NASA schedule to the market average. That again occurs on June 30th as a mechanism that exists in the previous agreement. So the actual 15-16 schedule, so the schedule that hasn't been posted onto the website yet is the final 14-15 schedule, which contains the agreed upon market increase of 2.89%. The mechanism for doing that is contained in the 13-15 NASA, NRAP, and NAZED agreement. The 15-16 schedule that's part of this hasn't been further increased. So there's been no increase between the 14-15 final schedule, which had a 2.89% market increase, and the 15-16 schedule. There's a provision in all three agreements for application of the cost of living adjustment. It can be the legislature proposed one, but no further increase, except for the market adjustment that may occur if NASA is below the market average when we do the survey again in the January-February timeline of 2016. So that's why we don't do strikeout and underline, because the 15-16 schedule currently represents no increase over the final 14-15 schedule. That's a long explanation.
Oh, they're two separate numbers, correct?
Pardon me?
They're two different numbers, correct?
There's an initial 14-15 schedule, which is the numbers that are struck out on here, which is the schedule that's posted. There is a final schedule that doesn't take effect until June 30th, on which date the adjustment is made for the 14-15 school year. This schedule here is not the final 14-15 schedule. The 15-16 schedule is then just basically the final 14-15 schedule with no further increase on it. So there was an initial schedule. There's an adjustment that's made on June 30th based on the language in the agreement. And then we produce the 15-16 schedule going forward. If there's a cost of living adjustment funded by the legislature, that gets applied to the schedule. At the end of 15-16, again, June 30th, if NASA is below the market average, there'll be an adjustment next June 30th to produce the final 15-16 schedule. And that's how that market adjustment has worked for several years.
So the market adjustment doesn't kick in every single year?
It only kicks in if they're below the market average.
Okay, but between 14-15 and 15-16, there was not a market adjustment?
No, because the market adjustment is made at the end of the next year. That if you look at there's an awkward timing issue in terms of when we make the adjustment on payroll and then when we produce the final schedule, which then, because of the timing of the July 1st, June 30th administrative contract period, I have to immediately get the 15-16 schedule to you. So the 14-15 schedule has already been approved by the board. The mechanism is in the agreement. We just produce the schedule. And then, because of the timing of everything, we post the 15-16 schedule. that 15-16 schedule does reflect the final market adjustment made on the previous year's schedule. It does not reflect any further increase. It would be adjusted if there were cost of living adjustment funded by the legislature. The schedule would be increased by that amount. And then next June, the mechanism kicks in again, if indeed we're below market.
And I'll just add that traditionally, at least the last couple of years, while this process was suspended for a couple of years, but the last couple of years, when we met and discussed collective bargaining and a number of issues, I believe in March, we had shared with the board at that time what the adjustment level would be across these various administrative agreements for the 14-15 year.
So what are we approving tonight?
Pardon me?
So what are we approving tonight?
You are approving a 15-16 or 15-17 NASA, which is principals, NRAP, which is central office administrators, and NSD, which is executive staff, contracts for the next 2 years. You're approving, within that contract, you're approving the market adjustment language, and you're approving the flow-through of the any cost of living adjustment funded by the legislature. So if when we do the survey next January, February, if NASA is not below market, there isn't any adjustment to schedule. If the legislature funds, you're approving that mechanism, however, in this agreement, in all three of these agreements, you're approving the flow-through of a cost of living adjustment if it's funded by the legislature. If there's no cost of living adjustment funded, there wouldn't be an increase. So for 15-16 and 16-17, if NASA's below market, there's an adjustment both those years, made at June 30th at the end of each of those years. And there would be a cost of living adjustment if funded by the legislature. So that's what you would be approving, those two mechanisms, COLA and a market survey.
So that market adjustment piece that I've never been very much in favor of anyway, that market adjustment piece and a COLA, if both of those things occur, and that places, and I think that you just use the NASA group to base this on, but if it places it above that mid-range that's in our procedures, then what?
Then we don't make any further adjustment. We don't make a downward adjustment to the schedule. Since I've been here, I've never seen a situation where we've actually been above the market. We are, so if you assume that the market adjustment in June got us up to the market average, and you assume that no other district for 15-16 increased their administrative salary schedules at all, except by the cost of living adjustment. By virtue of us passing on the cost of living adjustment, we would be exactly at the same, we would be at the market average when we surveyed next January and February. Part of the problem with that assumption is we don't control what other districts do with any of their salary schedules. So it is unlikely, since we're only bringing the schedules up to the market average, that, and we're only further enhancing the schedule like COLA, it's unlikely that we're ever going to get above the market average. In fact, it's a struggle to stay at the market average. And we recently did a really detailed benchmark survey for NRAP, which also puts us right at market median for our classifications in NRAP. So in both cases, I think this mechanism keeps us at the average of the market.
Are we looking at the median or the average for them?
With the principals, we look at the average.
The average. The other group's the same?
The benchmark survey we did with NRAP, we looked at median because we were looking at lots
and you interchange them, and that's where I started to get confused. So I see it's different for each group.
Well, because the classifications in NASA are common to all districts. They all have high school principals, junior high principals, or middle school principals, et cetera. In NRAP, there are lots of points of comparison, but there are differences between districts and how they staff their administrative functions. So what we tend to do is collect a lot of data from a lot of benchmarks and then do chart our salary line based on the market median. And typically we might have 20 or 30 data points when we do that. So using the median in that circumstance actually is a really good measure of where we compare in the market. I just offer that to say that we do the surveys with the other groups to make sure that we're not, that we're staying competitive in terms of the market salaries. But I can tell you that that is the market average. It's not the top 10%, not the top 25%. It's the market average.
But are you comparing every district in the state, or are you just comparing the select ones that y'all compare?
We compare with our peer districts in the Puget Sound area.
So it's a select group. It's not every district in the state.
It's the districts we compete with for administrators. We don't have to compete with the Fredo Washington for administrators necessarily. But we do compete with the
They
Puget Sound
can't
area.
compete with us.
Pardon me?
They can't compete with us.
I'm from there, so. But yeah, our peer districts are similar in size and are similar in geographic location, and that's the market we use for all our comparisons. So when we compare with, we could look at teacher tri-pay, or we look at what custodians make. Those are the peer districts we use.
So I had a question about C in the NRAP.
Look at that.
Okay. That's the 1.2% of the sum of their annual salary schedule is an increase to pay after as a longevity kind of increase after 7 years. Does that continue every year after those 7 years, or is that solely on that 7-year mark that occurs?
That longevity amount starts at the end of the 7th year and continues while the person is employed by the district.
That money continues, but do they receive another 1.2 in the 8th year and an additional 1.2 in the 9th year is what I'm asking?
No, they don't.
Okay. And so on the schedule that you've included, there's one of those little asterisks underneath the small print. And hourly rate based on 1760 hours, 220 days is for purpose of calculating vacation, sick leave, personal leave, buyback, and for leadership activities as defined in 1.C of agreement, but you've marked out 1.C of the agreement.
And I apologize, that should have been struck out.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for catching me.
Well, that made me go and look for C, and then I ended up with that 1.2.
You might remember the last agreement, we consolidated these salary elements so that for simplicity's sake, and that's why we're striking it out, but I didn't catch that on the schedule.
Okay, so that was just a thing. And I did ask someone why a CPA is the same as a master's, and someone told me that it was the same amount of schooling.
Yeah, well, we have a CPA in the room who can answer that question. It's considered similar to a master's degree in terms of a professional credential. In many cases, might be harder to obtain. So, but we do pay the stipend for a CPA.
If it's harder to obtain, should we pay more?
Perhaps.
Depends on the master's degree. What your master's degree would be.
Because maybe your master's degree would be harder to obtain.
It would just,
as
yeah, it
well.
would just depend.
Goodbye.
And what school you went to.
True.
I don't know, that CPA thing, that's a tough test.
And then in the NASA agreement, on the signature page, there's a paragraph called "Principals who are appointed to serve on the superintendent's expanded cabinet will receive an annual stipend of $1,875 for serving on the expanded cabinet. As part of the stipend, principal is required to do some things. So my question was, I had always thought expanded cabinet included all principals. Which principals are appointed to serve on the expanded cabinet?
This year?
I'm doing this from memory, but it's Obadiah Dunham from Leota, Paul Bodner from Eastridge, Donna Tyler